I will
Okay.
take roll. Chair Martin,
Here.
Vice Chair Hamilton, Regent Witten,
Present.
Regent Finan is not here. Regent Green,
Present.
Regent Martin,
Here.
and Regent Rabinowitz. We have 4 members present. We do have a quorum. We may proceed.
Okay. Let's proceed. Thank you all for being here online. Appreciate it. I know everybody's busy, but this should be pretty short. On the agenda,
we have approval of our previous meeting minutes from November 7th.
okay. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes? Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Or wave your hand or whatever.
All right, it looks like there are no objections.
Okay. So moved. Approval of the minutes. I'm on my laptop. I cannot see the next agenda item, Hannah.
Oh, okay, sure. It is, the next item is review of our March 14th board agenda.
Okay.
So I have pulled up here on the screen a draft that I'm happy to walk everyone through very briefly.
Okay. Please
So
do.
as we've talked about previously, our March meeting will be a one-day meeting. We will be at the system office in Versailles. We'll start at 9 a.m. We will have our usual routine items with an open comment period. As of now, don't have anyone who's indicated that they would like to speak to the board, but that may change. We will do our approval of minutes, our chair's report, and we will have our first report by our new president, Dr. Quarles. And then we will move on to agenda items. Because this is a one-day meeting, there may be some items that are posted and on board for everyone to review, but we won't be giving a presentation on those items. We're trying to limit it to items that will require action. So our first agenda item will be ratification of our college candidates for their credentials. And then after that, we'll move into some items surrounding organization success. There are several of those items. You can see we'll have an update from regarding Huron, and then an update from our Board of Regents Audit Committee, which will be meeting in February. Should we need any action by the board to approve asset preservation construction projects, we have left some time for that. Right now, we don't have any of those projects, but that could change. And then following that, we will have a discussion and action around Board of Regents required reserves. This is related to the state audit and some a recommendation from that to have the board take action there. We will ratify personnel actions. And then the rest of the items will be information only, so they won't require action, but we will begin talking about tuition, which of course will be voted on at our June board meeting. We'll be talking about budget scenarios, including employee compensation. Then we'll have a financial report, information around our strategic plan, and information about our 2024 calendar. And that will, and I'm sorry. Yes, and then we will.
Next step for us on the comp class, what are we presenting for the board to review on it this time?
Pam, would you like to handle that question?
Sure. On the comp and class, we will be giving an update as to what data cuts and scenarios that have been discussed with the PLT. and provide an estimate from the business officers and HR's joint team, determining how an estimation of how much moving everyone at least to the minimum would be based on the new salary schedule. But there will not need to be any action items except for a potential recommendation of a policy change on a budgeting mechanism for personnel costs.
Okay.
We had a pretty robust discussion about this yesterday at PLT, trying to gain consensus, and for me, trying to play catch up on an issue that I think you all been working on for quite some time. So still learning the ins and outs of comp and class.
So PLT has met and talked about, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brianna.
No, go ahead with your question. Mine can wait. Just come back to me, please.
Okay. I guess this is where we were needing PLT's input and finding out what are we able to bite off on comp and class. And then I think we also need to talk about how are we going to continue to work on the comp and class in the future. What is our expectations? I think we need to talk about that as well.
Yes. So we are going to bring a full update of where we are on comp and class. That would include the entire framework that is required to ensure consistency in compensation. But main items of update will be decisions that the PLT have made around how much of the band that they will use for employee compensation before there is kind of an approval process that they go through with system office compensation to determine that consistency in application of the compensation is there. And then there will be other items such as how much or what types of compensation data we have drawn from. So all of those things will come to you, but what the PLT has made a decision on what data cut they want to use. And when I say that, I mean what are they drawing from for the benchmarking. So they are going to be drawing from a purely academic Coupa data. And then once we apply that to the positions, we will have a better idea of where everyone is banded and how much everything will cost. But that is going to go then, once it's all banded tomorrow and positions are mapped, that will go to the business affairs team to kind of look at how much the costing will be. So there will be a coming together, so to speak, of all of the financial side of it and the HR assignment side of it. So that's where we are. In addition, there's been some discussion still of the faculty promotion process. All of those will be information items, but remember that and we spoke to the PLT, that when the board passed the new salary bands, there is the requirement of the board of the institution to bring everyone at least to the minimum of the new band into which their position fits.
And then as far as the policy change, is that the policy change we're looking for? Is anything outside those bands has to be approved by the president or a designee of the president?
So no, the board policy will be a directive to the institution that KCTCS and all of its colleges will have to have a budgeting item of at least a 3% for personnel matters every single year. So it doesn't mean you have to apply the 3%, but we will be required to actually set that in stone so it's there should the board determine that they would like to provide a 3% increase, cost of living increase. It could be as low as 0.5%, but there will be a policy that requires the institution to put the employees first as a line item budget matter. So you will have that in policy, and it will, as all policies do, provide for deviation in, say, there is a really big economic downturn and you're not able to even go as high as 0.5%, or you say, hey, we're doing great, the economy is wonderful, tuition is up, enrollment is up, we're going to go with a 4% increase instead of a 3%. But what it does is it goes back to what the board asked previously, and that was to put the employees first, to always budget for a potential cost of living increase. So that is the board policy that will need to be passed. It will not be passed this next board meeting. It will be brought as the first reading for the next board meeting.
But I thought we talked about there's an implied policy that anything outside of these comp and class bands that the president should have to approve.
So if you're talking about the president of KCTCS, are you
Yes.
talking about? So no, that is not, that's part of the compensation playbook. That is an administrative policy.
Okay.
So there is a directive, there will be a policy surrounding what needs to be approved. And what has been decided upon is if the presidents at the local college go above 75% into the pay range. So let's say that Kimberly Green, Regent Green, is a band 5. That is not her band, but we're just going to use that. So she's a band 5. Let's say for ease of this, it's the top of the band is 10,000, the mid is 5,000, and the beginning is 1,000. There are 4 quartiles in that band. If a president determines that they would like to go into the 4th quartile, which means you go above 75% in the pay band for an employee, then there is a mechanism in the compensation playbook that will require approval and justification by the VP of HR and the VP of HR's compensation team.
We just don't want to get into this situation again. We need to have some safeguards in place. So do we feel like that's good enough?
Yes. I mean, the mechanism for the board is to delegate to the president of KCTCS the promulgation of administrative policies, and compensation policy is one of those policies. So once that's promulgated, there will be an approval process and a justification process for getting above that 75% in a pay band.
Okay. Brianna, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, I was just kind of going to follow up there with what Pam was saying. The idea, I think where we're confusing ourselves, Barry, is initially, what would that be? I think I want to say, Hannah, Pam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the March or June board meeting where I think maybe June, where we kind of made the statement where we said we wanted a line item in the budget for raises and compensation moving forward. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that discussion started back as far back as 3 years ago to have an employee first outlook to make sure that we did not get compression any worse by not having annual cost of living increases. And so that is what the policy will be, is to require this budgeting mechanism to be used by all of the colleges and the system office.
Which is completely different from what we're talking about with the options and everything else. Yes. I mean, that's just, yeah.
Correct.
So I think we might be confusing the two a little bit. So,
yeah.
And it was also discussed that at that time, I believe the board had given a one-time 500, 1,000 one-time benefit to employees. And that was the practice we were hoping to move away from with putting in a COLA. So it would be a line item for employees.
thank you. And just one quick question, completely off of this topic, just back to my original looking at the agenda. I know we had previously spoken in email kind of about rearranging some things that were on there, and I didn't necessarily see VP Shook, or I do see Dr. Wagner on here, but it's not discussing the same things. We will still have those reports. I think we can confirm this, but I just kind of want to verify that the board will see both of their reports that they had intended on presenting.
Absolutely. Those will be there, as well as any other reports that may come between now and then that need to be posted in there, that we may not necessarily have time for a presentation or a verbal update, but we'll put those in on board, of course, a week ahead so that everyone can review those.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I'm excited about this first meeting. I think it's going to be very full of information for you, but also for myself. And I'm glad that we're doing this so that those board members that choose to go to Boston are able to do that as well. And that's a scheduling issue that we identified back in the fall. So I'm just excited to get started.
We're excited that you're with us and excited to get you going with all this.
Regent Green.
It's a lot to digest.
I just had a couple of questions. Will there be a legislative update as part of the agenda?
Absolutely.
It will likely be a very full legislative update because President Quarles will have a lot to discuss.
Okay. And then also I just wanted to just point of clarification on the personnel actions. So that will include any new personnel, any new staffing announcements that we've had changes for at system office as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other questions about our meeting in March? I know we're gonna have to be very efficient. I keep saying that, but we are gonna have to be very efficient with it. But I think we were gonna have plenty of time for ample discussion.
So I would like to note for the record that Regent Rabinowitz joined us approximately 10 minutes ago. So she is part of the quorum. We had quorum and we continue to do so.
Good to have you.
Okay, well,
Okay.
that was it.
Okay, then. If nobody else has any questions, whatever, we'll see you in a couple months.
So we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do we need a second?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, and by consensus.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you all.
Have a great
Hello, this
afternoon.
is
See you
Hannah.
all.